This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another NHL team season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days carries on. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and we're talking Ottawa Senators in this preview video, and certainly a successful season for the Ottawa Senators just by virtue of them making the playoffs. It was a team that's been trying to get back to the postseason for the last few years, and they were able to do it in the first season with Travis Green as head coach of the Ottawa Senators. And look, that was a coaching hire we had some doubts about, but we're okay admitting when we're wrong. And he did a great, really solid job with this young Ottawa team, getting them into the playoffs before they fell to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round last season. You look at Ottawa as far as where they finished, 97 points, one back of the eventual Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, but they finished behind Toronto, Tampa Bay, Florida in the Atlantic Division. But still, massive steps forward being made by the Ottawa Senators last season. And when you look at this group coming into this year, you certainly see pieces that you're excited about as far as what they can do really at both ends of the ice. When we saw Ottawa last year, improved as far as goal scoring is concerned. But really where the jump happened for Ottawa, not surprising because this was a focus, was their defensive play. In the regular season, 2.83 goals per game allowed. Certainly improvements there at the defensive end of the ice for the Ottawa Senators. And again, when you're going to play good defense and you're going to get better goaltending, you're going to give yourself a better chance to win. And let's be honest, Ottawa's goaltending was horseshit 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And then you bring in a bona fide goalie like Linus Ullmark. It's certainly going to help. And he obviously played very well for the Ottawa Senators last season for the most part. And now he is their undisputed number one goaltender entering this season. Up front, it also helps when you have a captain that leads by example as far as how hard he plays on the ice, how intense he plays. Obviously, he can do all the things offensively, but, physical is always, on the edge in a good way, like trying to give his team, that boost and just, hey, I'll lead the way here with my work ethic and my, intensity. And Brady Tkachuk does that for the Ottawa Senators. Tim Stützle, Claude Giroux, Dylan Cousins, who was a nice piece back in that Josh Norris trade with the Buffalo Sabres, the workhorse from Whitehorse, as he's called, Drake Batherson, the veteran David Perron last year came in. Now struggled offensively, 9 goals, 7 assists, 16 points in 43 games. Also was marred by injuries. We'll see if David Perron can have a little bit better health this year for the Ottawa Senators. Tim Stützle, a season last year that was, 79 points, almost a point per game player. You like to see that. Drake Batherson last year, 68 points in 82 games. That was a career high for him in points. So it was great to see Batherson really take that big step. Fabian Zetterlund is a guy to keep an eye on because I think he's still got some great potential there. Now he's going to be with Ottawa for a full season. Keep in mind he's been with San Jose, a pretty bad hockey team the last couple of years. So a full season of Zetterlund, I'm anticipating seeing how that goes. You've got the likes of Ridley Gregg, Michael Amadio, and Lars Eller as some, solid pieces in the bottom six. And, of course, our guy Shane Parlay Pinto, as we call him. 70 games, 37 points last year, 21 goals, and I think probably can get to that 25, 30 goal mark. I think he can be a 25 or 30 goal scorer, Shane Pinto here in the NHL. So I like the look of the forward group. Are there questions as far as some of the depth pieces? Yes, but like I said, up front, they got a nice mix of youth and skill and veterans. Claude Giroux is not going to be the player he was back in Philadelphia, but, still a serviceable 50-point season last year. That was down from a couple years ago as far as goals and points. I don't think he's ever going to be that phenomenal offensive player like he was back in Philly anymore, not at this stage of his career. But that's why you've got the likes of Stützle, and you hope Batherson can be good for you, and Cousins and Pinto and some of these other pieces can certainly be difference makers and help, provide that goal-scoring production in that offense, even though Giroux is unlikely to reach the levels he did several years ago. On the blue line, we don't just we love Jake Sanderson. Jake Sanderson, obviously, look at the jump in his offensive game. He's already a very good defense in his own end, body position, in the D zone, making responsible plays, being strong in front of the net. But it's his offensive game, quarterbacking a power play, piling up points from the blue line that took a huge step forward last year. And his offensive game really took off. 57 points in 80 games last year for Jake Sanderson. He started playing tons of power play time. In fact, just as much power play time as Shabbat, who had been the primary quarterback on the power play from the blue line for Ottawa for years. So Jake Sanderson certainly is looking better and better that Ottawa locked him in for that contract when they did. And now you're going to get some, probably an elite defenseman in the NHL at a reasonable number as far as his contract is concerned. Shabbat, again, there's questions about durability with him. I thought he had I think at times he played better than he did. He struggled 2-3 years ago. Last year, I think there was some better signs. It's just about whether he's able to stay on the ice for the full season. We'll see with Artem Zub and Nick Jensen. I still think there's a little bit of, a little bit weak on the right side of that blue line when you're talking about Zub. They do have work to try to improve that. This could be one of these situations where Steve Staios, who's a very smart GM, I think he's a great GM for this team, and he's already done a nice job. He's going to be looking for an upgrade on the right side of that Ottawa defense, that blue line, probably at the trade deadline. It wouldn't shock me to see him look for an upgrade at that time. But I like Tyler Kleven. I think you have to be impressed with the kind of year he gave Ottawa last year. In the playoffs, I thought he played a pretty solid defensive role against a tough team like Toronto. Jordan Spence brought in from the LA Kings. I like that as a depth addition to the blue line. Keep your eye on Nicholas Matanpalo, who played last year for the Ottawa blue line, and Carter Yakimchuk. This is a very good skater, guy that's capable of putting up some points from the blue line as well. And he is going to be, and he's, remember, 7th overall pick last year by the Ottawa Senators in the draft. They like him. And I remember in the preseason last year, he was knocking on the door of making this team, Carter Yakimchuk. So they really like him and his skating ability. Someone that might make this team out of training camp if he comes close to duplicating what he did last year in camp for this Ottawa team. And I think they're fine in net. We talked about Allmark. Finally gives them that legit number one starting goaltender. And Levi Marilainen, who is likely going to be the full-time backup goalie to Linus Allmark last year. I know the sample size is small, but you got to love the way he played for the Ottawa Senators when he got the opportunity last year. He got into 12 games, 8-3-1, 3 shutouts, 1.99 goals against average, and .925 save percentage for Levi Marilainen last year in a small sample size later in the year when he was and he got a bunch of starts because Allmark was banged up late in the year. That's when Marilainen got the opportunity to play, and he took the opportunity and ran with it. He was very good, and if he can provide, that kind of performance this year in a backup role and give Travis Green the opportunity to keep, Linus Allmark fresher, not have to start him maybe 70-plus games automatically this year, then it's certainly maybe going to lead to a better Linus Allmark come playoff time should the Ottawa Senators get there once again. So, last year, certainly, if you bought low on Ottawa, you were rewarded. They ended up last year with, the success that they had. And as far as points, they ended up with 97. You look at this Ottawa team going into this year, their point total at FanDuel is 95.5. I'd certainly lean to the over here as far as that's concerned. And then as far as stage of elimination goes, I do think they're a playoff team and can be a playoff team this year. But, the Eastern Conference and their own division in particular is very tough. Toronto, Tampa, Florida aren't going anywhere. Montreal, is going to just building the start of a potential consistent perennial contender. They're not going to be easy. So I don't know if they have a long playoff run in them, Ottawa. There still could be ways to go before that. They have that long, deep run. But I think they're a playoff team, and I don't mind to look to the first round stage of elimination prop bet that's available right now at FanDuel. Alex, your thoughts here on the Ottawa Senators?
Yeah, I hope you can hear me. My connection's going in and out. But this is okay. Good. Yeah, we were talking about this before we went on air about how with the goaltending would be a huge question of whether this could be another season for Ottawa kind of fighting and floating around the wild card spot, or can they firmly get themselves into the playoff picture? And like I said, it rests a lot on Levi Marilainen. if he's a guy who can give you 20, 25 games and give you quality starts like we saw in the time that he spelled like the Allmark in relief last year, then that'll be huge because this is a team that they can't afford to run Allmark into the ground. Ever since that season where he had the big year with Boston, won the Vezina, and then played through the injury, they get bounced in the first round. We've seen him be a little bit shaky playing these heavy minutes. Okay, even going back to his time in Buffalo, he was the guy where they had to just rely on him to be a workhorse. If you can, as he's getting older now, you get a Marilyn to get in and spell the goaltender and steal you some games. Those are the games that you need to win to be a second place or a third place team. Those games in the middle of a road trip in late January. And you have your backup come in and give you a 35 save performance and steal your victory. So that's what I think Ottawa, where they make their jump. Otherwise, they look like the same old team from last year, which is not bad, but they're good enough to get into the playoffs and maybe have a feisty first round and then get bounced out. So that's the only future play I have with I have that plus 170 with Ottawa to be knocked out in the first round. Looking at their schedule, a little tough right out of the gate. You start off with the little Florida swing at Tampa, at Florida, then a home opener in the daytime against Nashville, and then going on the road to Buffalo before having a little home swing. So maybe there's spots to fade them early and then spots to back to. Definitely from a game-by-game basis is the team I'll be looking at betting on. And, of course, this is a team where we cash with a lot of bargain bins throughout the year too. David Perron being one of those notable guys. I think you talked a lot about
bargain bin special the night team to us. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So I can see where this will be another team where another year where we're looking at this team for some of those bargain bin guys.
Yeah, no question. We'll be doing some Shane Pinto goal props again this year. Make no mistake about it. He was definitely one of the favorite targets, certainly of yours truly, as far as the
Pinto and Perron were the two that I feel like we both cashed with quite a couple times.
All right, good stuff indeed. Yeah, I think for Ottawa, it's going to be, can they take that another year of growth? But there's a lot to like. There's some good pieces. I think Stützle has not had quite that monster year yet, but like I said, he's capable of it. Like I said, Brady Tkachuk, you love his style of play. There's a lot to like up front. I think what's key on the blue line is Chabot staying healthy. Sanderson, I don't worry about, but I want to see how the Clevin, Jensen, Zub, and let's see if Yakimchuk makes the team. If those guys can play the minutes they're going to need to make this blue line, turn this blue line from being decent to good. And I think that's going to be the thing to watch. And I like them in net. I think Allmark Marilyn could be a very, very solid tandem for them. So, like I said, I think Ottawa, again, I don't think we're getting the buy low value of last year. So I'm not running to bet a ton of Ottawa stuff overs, but I lean in that direction that they're still going to have a pretty solid season this year. There's your look at the Ottawa Senators. Before we wrap it up, we'll hear from our great brand new smoke sponsor of the Ice Guys Show, our friends at Royal Cannabis.
Royal Cannabis, where the kings and queens shop.
Check them out, 20% off, promo code IceGuys, royalcannabisshop.com. For Alex P. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. This has been your Ottawa Senators season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along, courtesy of the Ice Guys.